Greetings, salutations, everybody. Welcome to the newest installment of AMC For Your Consideration, movie talk for movie fans. My name is John Campy. I'm the senior editor of AMC Movie News. We are so glad that you guys decided to join us, especially those of you who are joining us live on our Ustream page. If you're watching us on YouTube or on Apple TV or on your Roku or anywhere else listening to us on audio, you can join us live every Monday and Thursday at 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time or 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And we would love to have you guys join us. You can jump in the chat boards, chat with us, ask questions that we'll answer on air. Just want to let you know right now, in a little bit later in the show, we're going to take a segment where we're just going to address the topics you want us to talk about. We want to know what you guys think, and we want to take your questions. So all you got to do to get your questions or your comments on air is jump into the social stream tab right beside the video player that you see. Check in and start typing them in. And this guy back here, Ryan, is going to be keeping an eye on that chat board, and he's going to be taking your questions and comments. You can't see him, but trust me, he's behind this big silver screen. So he'll be there to take all your questions and comments, and we will get to those in just a little while. Right now, I'm very excited to introduce you to our panel for today. First of all, sitting on her lonesome on the end, she is a film critic for Fandango.com, and I don't know if I'm allowed to talk about what you're doing soon.
Nope, it's a big, exciting secret.
Okay, I can't talk about it, but it is big and is exciting. Ms. Grae Drake. Grae, thanks so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Sitting next to Grae, she is from IGN. I run into her on red carpets from time to time and all the time and hang out at Comic-Con and whatnot. Miss Amirose Eisenbach. Amirose, thanks for being here.
Pleasure to be here.
And sitting beside her, she is, of course, the associate editor for AMC Movie News, and she's also a contributing writer to sites like Screen Rant and Screen Crush, Miss Roth Cornet. Roth, how you doing?
Yeah.
It is so good to have you here, too. Listen, folks, we've got a number of really big topics to get to today, and I was going to start with something else, but I think this is the biggest one to talk about, so we're going to start with this. Coming into August now, it is... we had this discussion the other day, actually. As we get into August, it's pretty much the end of the summer movie season. Mm-hmm. So we're pretty much at the end of the big summer blockbusters. And of course, Total Recall is opening tonight at midnight. We'll get to that in a second. But the summer blockbuster season is over. So which got me to wondering and thinking to myself, what were the best films this summer? How would we rank the best films? And now, to make sure it's not a 5-hour-long discussion, and by the way, folks, I'd love to hear your input on this in the chat board. I wanted to ask each of you guys, when we're looking at films like, honestly, I think this was a pretty good summer for films. We got things like Snow White and the Huntsman. I thought The Dictator was quite good. Obviously, Batman, Spider-Man, Avengers, Ted, Men in Black, Prometheus, lots of notable films. I want to ask you guys, what was the best 3 films of this summer? Amirose, we're going to put you on the spot.
All right.
We're going to start with you. And start at number 3. Bring us down here. How would you rank from 3 to 1 the best films of the summer 2012?
All right. I would put my number 3, Moonrise Kingdom.
Nice.
I am a big Wes Anderson fan. There was a lot of heart, great characters. I absolutely loved that movie. Number 2, I would put Dark Knight. Huge Nolan fan. While no, it was not the perfect ending to a trilogy, I thought it was really strong, and I love Nolan's storytelling. And number 1, definitely Avengers. Having all my faves on the screen at once, I was smiling the entire film.
All right, Grae, how about you? From 3 to 1.
Actually, my list is shockingly similar because we were apparently separated at birth. I just learned.
Love your style.
Love your style as well. So my number 3 was, well, you know what? Number 3 was Moonrise Kingdom because that movie's spectacular. That movie's so good that it's one of those films, like, anytime someone had a criticism about it, I was like, shut your mouth.
I didn't like it.
You didn't? See?
Shut your mouth.
I know, sorry.
Ridiculous. No,
I know.
That's
I've
insane.
been told by many people that it's ridiculous that I think that way.
The reason that it's so good is that I really like all of his movies except that this one, the tone that Wes Anderson has, it's always so wink, wink, cutesy, fit in perfectly with these little kids. And it made it magical, and I've never seen a film of his be that magical. So awesome.
And Edward Norton pretty awesome.
Finally.
Yeah.
Finally. Like, what a great actor he is, but he hasn't done anything that's really
he's had some
caught my
moments.
eye, you know? So my number 2 is the one that's different, and that one is Ted.
I love Ted. That was my number
Ted.
4.
Yeah. My honor. Well, and then number 1 is The Avengers because it had such a great heart and it was so fun and it was so happy. And Drew McWeeny wrote this great article on HitFix about it, and he's totally right because it's just had just uplifting, and I just was excited the whole time. Like every 5 minutes, I just kept saying, "Oh my God! Oh, I was that person."
Can you do that face again?
Oh,
Perfect. That's the screenshot for next week's show. I think.
honorable mention goes to Katy Perry. Part of me.
Oh,
Sorry, great movie.
we went there, huh?
Yeah, we did.
Roth, how about you? Give us your top 3.
You know, I think it's kind of hard because there's a lot of movies that I liked for a lot of different reasons this summer.
Yeah, that's
you know,
BS. Pick.
Pick your movie. I liked People Like Us. I liked a lot of smaller movies, but
Yes.
here's what I'm going to go with. The third one is going to break my rule for the first 2. The third one is a movie called Sound of My Voice, and I'm kind of eking it into the summer season.
Wow.
I actually really love this movie. It's a tiny little sci-fi movie by Britt Marling, who also did Another Earth. I love it because I think it's a really interesting take on a genre that I happen to be a huge fan of, which is science fiction. And I think it has a lot to offer in terms of the characterization, the character studies, and the story. And it has a lot to offer about what you can do with a film with a small budget and limited resources. So I really recommend that people check out Britt and her work. That's the reason I'm picking that one. The next 2 are,
Bold.
I think that, bold choice on my part. The next 2 are big event summer films, which is what I think of when I think what are your 2 favorite summer movies.
course,
And
yeah.
I think that the ones that really fulfilled on what they needed to deliver are The Dark Knight Rises, which will be my number 2. Although I love the movies you guys picked too. The Dark Knight Rises, I think it did satisfy the fan base. I think that it has a lot to offer in terms of spectacular filmmaking. I mean, Nolan really knows how to work practical effects.
Right.
And many other elements. And number 1 is, of course, The Avengers. I mean, it just has everything that you should have in a summer
Everything.
film.
I know.
It's fun, it's funny, it's big, it's spectacular, it's epic.
It's just so interesting, like, to think that, I mean, all of us are that's our number
Yeah.
1 pick. And what is it? The movie itself, like, wasn't that far outside the box. But, John, what do you think of The Avengers?
Well, I mean,
Why did I say it
well,
like
let
that?
me run down my 3 then
Do
here
it.
quickly. Number 3, and really interesting list of 3. Now let me give you the correct list. At number 3, I'm gonna The Amazing Spider-Man. This film,
Boo.
Yeah,
in every way, shape, and form, The Amazing Spider-Man, except for maybe score, is superior in every way.
Definitely.
To
the
what?
at least the first Raimi Spider-Man, definitely the
Okay.
third Raimi
Yes.
Spider-Man.
Yes.
It was the
I-
same
but
exact story.
I think, it's taking Peter Parker, the big mistake I think of the Raimi Spider-Man films, which I like very, very much, but the big mistake is they still had a 1960s Peter Parker and a 1960s Mary Jane in a contemporary context. Doesn't really work. What I love what they did with this Spider-Man was they made Peter Parker the socially awkward nerd, but made it the socially awkward kind of outsider kid of today's context. And I think that worked beautifully. I thought the effects were great. I thought the action was great. I really like this film. And I feel the same way that you do about Moonrise Kingdom. When people come up to me, I had a really good friend of mine, Chris Tapley, come in here the other day of In Contention and HitFix, say, "Oh, I hated that movie." It's like, dude, you are out of your freaking mind. This I thought it was a great movie. Number 2, Ted.
Okay.
Ted, I was so shocked. I mean, I expected some laughs from Seth MacFarlane. I didn't know he would do that well. I laughed
Yeah.
my head off. I mean, the movie's a little bit long. It drags a little bit in some places, but overall, I think it was really good. And obviously, The Avengers is the best film of the summer. I mean, it's no question. This is the most fun film I have ever seen in my life. I'm not saying it's the best film I've ever seen in my life. But, I mean,
so fun.
Yeah.
You know, though, the thing about it is it just might qualify for one of the best movies of all time. Like, that's what's crazy about this film.
You mean
It's
when
so
like,
good.
given retrospect and time will tell. I mean, look, I'm a huge Joss Whedon lover.
That was a big huge.
I write huge. As big as I mean, I as big as Thor's hammer. I love him. I think it's really big.
Giggles from the girl.
I really think he can do something that very, very, very few people can do, and it's another one of my favorite filmmakers that John and I really disagree on, which is Paul Verhoeven, which is that he can do satiric camp. Almost.
I don't know what
no
I've
one
never
can do
disagreed with
that.
you about Paul Verhoeven.
Okay.
How could
You're
you?
thinking of
What with-
somebody else.
All right, somebody else.
Space
Thank
troopers,
you. Star
man.
Trek
Star Troopers.
But more
Thank
like
you. Yes.
RoboCop,
Best.
Total Recall, so on. But what Joss can do, I think, is he can do satiric camp, which is something where you go to a campy level, but you still are invested emotionally. So the humor sort of works with the emotional investment. Very few people can do that. I don't think The Avengers was particularly campy.
No.
I don't either.
Which is what he did sort of with Buffy. But what I think that what worked for him was his ability to work with an ensemble cast and to deliver on the humor and the emotional sort of, not complexity, because it's really not complex.
But but still layered somehow. Like it somehow worked. It worked well.
I got to bring this up here quickly. Ken Miley is asking in the chat board. He's asking me, how can you have a top 3 list of the summer and not include The Dark Knight Rises?
So that's directed towards me.
Oh yeah, that's right. It wasn't yours either.
John.
And you, John.
We're covered there.
Yeah,
You guys are fine. We are the heretics.
I would put it at 4. It's a good movie. I like Dark Knight Rises. It's a good movie. Not as good as Ted. Nowhere near as entertaining as Avengers.
I'm in the Roger Ebert school of thought on this one. Is it Ken?
Ken.
Yeah. Ken. I'm in the Roger Ebert school of thought, which is that Dark Knight Rises was good, or great even. I mean, it was a satisfying movie.
I would call it very good.
Yeah,
I think it's a very
sure.
good movie.
I rated it 4 out of 5 on movies.com. I mean, I really liked it. However, it was not fun. There was nothing fun about it. I thought it was super, super dark.
It was all set up. It felt like a lot of setup.
Well, rebuttal, Grae, I hate to disagree, but I think
Bring it, baby.
I'm bringing it. I think Anne Hathaway was a lot of fun.
She was the best part of the film.
Yeah.
And do you know why she was so good? This is the thing. I agree with you, but I don't think she was particularly fun. I wanted her to be a little bit more sassy, but I love that Christopher Nolan made the character of Catwoman really his.
Yeah.
Like he made that character fit in his world of characters, and it wasn't super campy, and she wasn't Michelle Pfeiffer, and I thought that was
or Halle
great.
Berry, which was the worst
let's not even go there.
I just got chills.
I loved Michelle
Disgust.
Pfeiffer's Catwoman too, though. I really did. I mean, it's a very different tone. It's a very different movie.
This felt
and
much
it
more
had
organic.
Yeah, this felt
Right.
well in Nolan's universe.
Yeah.
It was
Yes.
grounded. It was organic. I believed her. I was rooting for her above everyone, actually, in all ways. I was rooting for her to sort of fulfill the potential of who she could be as a character, and I thought she was in the right most of the time.
All right, listen, we could go on talking about Dark Knight Rises and the best film of the summer for a while, but we got to move on to the next topic here. I think it's safe to say, one of the most anticipated films of this past summer was Ridley Scott's Prometheus.
Yes.
Which came out, and it was, I believe yesterday is when the news came out, that it is official. They are indeed moving forward with a Prometheus sequel. Shock and awe. So my question to you guys is, and Roth, let's start with you on this. I mean, you actually went to England to sit down and meet with the cast and crew of Prometheus. How do you feel about this news, about Prometheus, a sequel to Prometheus coming?
And it's funny because we have a very lively debate on our YouTube account at present between two folks on our piece about the new. We did a video about the news of the Prometheus sequel. I think that people are going to feel very divided about this, and they feel very divided about the movie. I love Blade Runner. I love Alien, and I really believe in Ridley Scott as a filmmaker. The one thing that sort of heartens me in this piece of news is that Damon Lindelof may not be attached. They are talking to other writers, and I think that there is a rich world. There's a really imaginative world, and there is a good film in that world. There is a great film in that world to be discovered and mined, and I want to see that happen. And I think that Ridley Scott, with the pairing of an excellent script, can deliver a masterpiece, because visually Prometheus is the best 3D I think I've ever seen.
Yeah,
Visually.
gorgeous.
You know?
Yeah.
If he finds the right script with this mythos, I think it will really be a masterpiece. I think that Prometheus had its problems, and I hate to be the one that's picking on the little guy and the scapegoat of this whole production, but I really think it's Lindelof.
Look, I'm going to agree with you on that. I mean, I feel the same way about Prometheus as I did about the original Underworld. You know, I thought the original Underworld, when I watched this, like, there are so many awesome elements here. They have the building blocks for something incredible. I really dig some of the mythology, the characters, and yet I wasn't quite satisfied with the film, but really looking forward to a sequel. Oddly enough, I came out of the film thinking, I'm not really sure I even like that movie, but I'm dying to see a sequel because they have so much potential there. I felt the same way about this news about Prometheus. I'll come out and say it. Prometheus is my most disappointing film of the year.
Agreed.
I was let down quite a bit by Prometheus, and yet I love this news. I am dying to see Ridley Scott take another crack at Prometheus, this world that he has, without Damon Lindelof.
Answer some questions.
Yeah, answer some questions, fix the mistakes that there were in the script. But I think he's got all the building blocks there to make a terrific film, and I'm dying to see a sequel. Great, what are you thinking?
He's the master. I mean, Ridley Scott. That's the only reason we were excited about this in the first place, because he started this whole thing back, decades ago, and then everyone has ripped him off, and now he's back. So Prometheus was great in that respect. Everything you guys have said is right. Prometheus is basically like, sitting in that movie was like, the reminded me of the guys I used to date. That they're like
The surgery scene or what?
super nice guys, but I was just sitting there waiting for them to get their ass off the couch and like live up to their potential. It's like, go chase your dreams and stop this madness of you playing with too many cats. What is going on in this household? And that's what seeing that movie was like.
You've got an interesting life history that we've got to talk about sometime. Anyway, Amirose, what do you think about Prometheus?
It's like having too many cats. That's your poster quote.
There you go. With this picture, you're set.
Grae Drake, movies.com.
I agree with the lovely ladies to my left and right. Ridley Scott is a master. Sci-fi is one of my favorite genres ever, and to set the bar so high with Blade Runner, with Alien, we expect a lot out of you. Visually stunning, loved it. I was never bored in the film, but I wasn't fully engaged. I didn't care about any of the characters. I didn't know their motivations. Charlize Theron, who's usually spectacular, what was that?
Yeah, it wasn't spectacular.
Like, Michael Fassbender did great with David.
Yeah.
He's always great, but still, it was just, everything was a little off. But in terms of, the production value and everything, I mean, Ridley Scott's a master. But I agree with you. I'm still interested in the sequel. Why I was very disappointed, because I thought the marketing for Prometheus was brilliant.
Yeah, it was.
And like, is it a prequel? Is it not? Like, I've been following this movie forever. But I definitely, it disappointed me, but I will see it. I probably won't see it opening weekend, but more of a matinee.
I'll be there opening weekend.
Could we maybe ask Ridley Scott, though, to refrain from saying the phrase, "You've never seen anything like this before"?
Well,
Because, hello, we have, like, you're the one that did it.
And
this,
it was better.
and it was better, and it's like, this is great again, but it's the same.
All right, I got to throw it to Ryan. We got some stuff going on in the chat board. What's going on?
Yeah, well, Tyler Ruth just kind of summed up what you guys are kind of saying there, especially Roth. Prometheus was the beginning of something amazing. To be echoed by G-Funk 1086, to quote Michael Fassbender in Lawrence of Arabia, big things have small beginnings.
Ooh, nicely done.
nicely done. Yeah.
Ooh.
All right, listen, we need
Come
to
back
move
to
on,
this chat room anytime.
We need to move on to our next topic here.
cats here.
And this is, oh man, this is one of those topics that just won't go away over the last few years, and maybe it looks like we're finally getting into the final bits of this.
I'm already excited.
Dan Aykroyd was asked, I mean, we've been talking about Ghostbusters 3 now for years.
Since the last one.
The original guys are going to be in it. They're not going to be in it. Aykroyd and Murray will be there, but no, they're not going to be there. Blah, blah, blah. It goes on and on and on. Well, Dan Aykroyd was finally just asked really directly. And he said some things I think a lot of us have suspected, but he's actually put the exclamation mark on it. So basically, Dan Aykroyd was asked, in regards to, is there going to be a Ghostbusters 3? He said, yes. We've got a brilliant new writer on it, and we're passing the torch to a new generation. We're working on it. We're working on it to make it just right to satisfy our fans. I'm confident it will be in production in the next year. And then when asked directly, is Bill Murray doing it? Dan Aykroyd said, no. I can tell you he will not be involved. So when asked directly, will Bill Murray be involved? Because remember, up until this point, everything's been, well, we're talking to Bill, we're trying to work something out, blah, blah. Aykroyd has said directly, no, I can tell you Bill Murray will not be involved. So really what we've got here is two questions. Question number one is, should they go ahead and still do a Ghostbusters 3 without Bill Murray? Because, I mean, it does sound a little bit like the emphasis isn't going to be on the classic Ghostbusters anyway.
Yeah.
But is this film really going to happen? Will this film really get made? Roth, let's start with you. What are you thinking?
No, this film will never happen. I feel like it's one of these things where, in an odd way, I feel like if Aykroyd hadn't been pursuing it for these many years, that right now it could happen, because it seemingly there is no remake or reboot or sequel that we won't do at this point. But the problem with Ghostbusters is that I think that it now has the stigma of like, oh, that thing that we talk about that old crazy Uncle Dan keeps mentioning at dinner that's never gonna happen. That's one thing. And then two, I think a Ghostbusters without Bill Murray
Is not Ghostbusters.
Unless you are rebooting it with an entirely new cast.
Which would totally suck.
Which would be an abomination. And the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man should smash you to bits if you even think
Right,
it.
just out of sheer
So
principle.
No. It just doesn't make any. You need him.
Yeah.
He made that movie.
Well, yeah, I mean, you can't do the movie with
No.
3 out of 4. That makes no sense. It's like, are they going to replace him with Ashton Kutcher? Because that was a great idea
Might
for
as
3.5
well.
Men.
Yeah. Killed it.
Like, it's terrible.
Ashton Kutcher just replaces it.
Right, exactly. And it's like Dan Aykroyd and Ashton Kutcher all of a sudden. We ain't afraid no ghosts. That's what Hollywood's doing to us. It's like this job just gets more bizarre every day because you read these things. I say, why are we still chasing the dragon? We are the crack addicts chasing the high of the first movie because there are only 2 and the second one was
Yeah.
not great.
No.
Right, it wasn't.
And so I don't see what. It's not going to be any better, 15, 20 years later? It's like, this is not getting better, you guys. It's like, I feel like we should let this sleeping dog lie.
Yeah.
Just do a new Ghost franchise with Dan and call it something else.
Yeah, like he'll give him a chance to promote his Crystal Skull vodka and let's forget about it. I mean,
or just move on.
Yeah.
can we just cherish the old thing for
Yeah,
once?
Don't kill it. Let it
know.
rest.
Like-
Well, you see, I've got this philosophy on remakes. I think remakes are fine. I have no problem with remakes because remakes don't, unless you're George Lucas.
You're
and
the
going to
problem.
destroy the originals by changing the originals. Now we can't get the actual originals anymore. But I think remakes are fine because they in no way, shape, or form harm, touch, or take away from the originals that are still there and still classic.
But
and I'm
they're
sorry,
trying
some of
to.
the best films of all time are remakes.
That's
That's
true.
So I mean, you look at stuff like The Fly, or you look at Scarface, or you look Lord of the Rings. An argument can be made that's a remake because they did an animated film of it. I mean, so I'm cool with that, but can it work? I mean, I tend to side with you, Roth. I think this is a film that would work better as a remake. I think it would work better as a remake than trying to bring out just a couple of the guys from the original,
sad.
leaving out the main lead guy.
Well, it's like, what are you
Bringing a
going
new
to...
generation? If you're going to bring a new generation, just reboot it.
Let's think about this for a second. If they're only going to have, let's say, 2 or 3 of the originals, right? Then what? Are they going to be like fighting werewolves in eastern Pennsylvania?
Probably vampires.
Do you know?
Probably has
It's
to
like
be vampires.
they have to they can't.
Yeah.
It's like you can't be in the same place. Something has to have happened. I don't know.
This
Just
is my
leave-
guess. This is
Yeah.
my guess. They're retired. There's a new team that comes forward that's a younger generation. They show up to sort of mentor them along, and really they're like trying to pass the mantle to this new group of probably Ashton Kutcher and 2 other people.
Well, no, Dan Aykroyd has said.
There's the
Dan Aykroyd has
face
said that,
again.
he said, my character's a lot older. I've got a bum knee. My eyesight barely works anymore, and it's time for us to pass on the generation. That's what he's
Right.
talking about in story terms.
Yeah.
I'm already asleep. What did you
I'm
say?
imagining
Yeah.
like Doc from Back to the Future. Right there.
I just think it's just not a good idea. And I mean, look,
Yeah.
we already saw with Dan Aykroyd what he did to the Blues Brothers, and don't get me started on that, because that movie is something I think about every day. The original Blues Brothers.
Okay, Ryan, you got some stuff going on in the chat board. What's happening?
Lay it on us,
Well,
Ryan.
there's just it's a very bold comment, and I think it bears hearing. Whitney Seibold says remakes boorishly insert themselves into any conversation about the classic originals, and
Definitely.
I find that to be true as well.
Yeah.
Whitney, you're an intelligent
Yeah.
man.
We have
Very
some
well
kind
said,
of
Whitney.
amazing commenters.
Yes, we do.
That's my
All right.
problem with all these
Pick it up,
reboots
James.
and everything. If you're gonna do it again, it has to be better. It has to be unique. It has to be a different story. It has to be fresh.
Right.
But if you're just gonna remake it, it's a waste of time and money.
And you're
All
right, John, that remakes, some of the best movies are remakes. However, that has slowed down so much in the recent past. I would say Lord of the Rings might be one of the only ones that holds up to that rule. And I'm forgetting, of course, that there are a couple others. I hope the chat room will jump in. But, I mean, I think that mostly it's just you cash in, and I'm a lady, and I cannot separate my emotions from the movies, and I emotionally do not want to see Ghostbusters without Bill Murray.
James in the chat board, James Ilham points out Star Trek.
Yes,
I mean, you can
precisely.
argue, well, since
J.J.
Spock is
Abrams
there, maybe it's
killed
really
it.
good. No,
Love
it's a remake. It's the Star Trek was a remake.
It
That's
is.
really good. But listen, we need to move on to this real quick. We're just briefly here and quickly. A couple of new trailers for Skyfall came out the other day, and we're running really low on time here, but just quick thoughts on the Skyfall trailer. I'll start. It's awesome.
Right.
Awesome.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
Anybody who doesn't think that trailer is great needs to shut their mouth.
Yep.
Shut their mouth right away. He gets shot right in the beginning. He gets shot again. It's the same thing over and over and over again. All these James Bond movies, and I don't care. Blondes have more fun. Daniel Craig, call me.
Amirose.
Javier Bardem
Yes.
looks creepy and awesome.
Yes.
Sam Mendes at the helm is an amazing decision.
I didn't think it was possible for him to look more creepy than he did in No Country for Old Men.
so creepy.
Yet-
And he does.
So
What did
creepy.
they do to him?
Yeah.
Roth?
And Daniel Craig is the best, Bond. He's suave, he's badass, you believe it. I'm really excited.
I've always said the reason Daniel Craig is my favorite Bond is at last it looks like we have a James Bond who could kick my ass instead of kiss it. And I love that. Anyway,
Or a little
both.
bit of
Yeah.
both.
Yeah.
Don't look directly into the blue eyes, because they will magnetize you and make you forget everything.
yeah. It's on.
I cannot wait for this movie. I think that with the Casino Royale, they started a trend of elevating the storytelling, and I think they're going to continue it in this movie. And I think that, frankly, the bankruptcy was the best thing that ever happened to this franchise, because it gave them the time to develop a script that's going to be fabulous.
Yeah, I mean, the last one wasn't fantastic, but I think this one's going to be
Yeah.
awesome.
All right. Listen, I wanted to bring up something here. We do a segment once in a while on AMC that now we're going to do here as a part of the show called AMC Asks, where we're going to give out a couple of free movie passes to one of you guys watching the show right now.
Nice.
And here's how you get it. First of all, AMC asks you this. Now that Daniel Craig is poised and ready to dominate the big screen again as 007 James Bond in Skyfall, AMC asks, what is your favorite Daniel Craig movie outside of Bond? So here's what we want you to do. We want you to answer, and to be eligible to win a couple of free AMC movie passes, here's what you got to do. Tweet your answer to AMC Theaters with the hashtag AMC Asks. Make sure you have that hashtag in there, or else we'll never find your answer. We'll pick one winner at random and send you 2 free AMC movie tickets. Now, here's an important part, though. You must make sure you follow AMC Theaters on Twitter, or else, because of the way Twitter works, we can't direct message you back to let you know you won. So if we pick you and we can't direct message you, we have to pick another winner. So once again, get on Twitter, tweet to us at AMC Theaters with the hashtag AMC Ask, and let us know your favorite Daniel Craig role outside of James Bond, and we're going to pick one winner at random and send you a couple of free movie tickets.
And if anybody says Dreamhouse, I'm going to break your face.
Now, I wanted to mention here, before we get to the over-under game, I wanted to remind people that tonight at midnight, being Thursday, and of course this weekend, is the opening of the new, talking about remakes, the new Colin Farrell film, Total Recall, also starring Jessica Biel, Kate, who secretly loves me, Beckinsale, and of course Breaking Bad's Bryan Cranston. I had a chance to go see it the other day, and this week I had a chance to actually sit down and talk with the star of the film, Colin Farrell. So don't forget, if you want to go see Total Recall, you can go to amctheaters.com right now and buy your tickets for tonight's midnight showing. For now, take a look at my conversation with, if I can find it because I lost it.
There's just so many.
There's so many of them, with Colin Farrell. Take a look. Colin, last time we had a chance to talk, we were just getting ready for Fright Night to come out.
Oh, yeah.
A film that you had a lot of love for already going into. As we come into Total Recall, how familiar were you with the film? And I'm always curious about how much of that film did you want to try to bring over, and how much did you just want to make a clean slate and really make it your own?
I really, to be honest with you, I would come from the school of clean slate. It seems to be a tricky one with remakes. If you have too much stuff in the original, people go, what's the point? You're just copying. If you don't have enough, they go, I can't believe they left that out. You know, seriously, you can't do right for doing wrong. You know, it's one of those. So I think the most important thing, I mean, it's more of a question probably for Len, because he being the designer of the world and being, fairly much the predominant driver of this whole experience into being, was the one that was very aware of what stuff to bring from the original Three-Breasted Woman, certain lines, the woman in the yellow jacket with the red hair, that's kind of a misdirect, and he was very adamant that a few things should remain and that the original should certainly be acknowledged. But then his biggest thing was to make something that justified its own existence, that stands alone as its own entity. And this is for him. I don't know if him as much, but I think he really liked the original, and I know I definitely really liked the original. So it was as much out of respect for the original as out of respect for wanting to make a film that in itself, even though it was a remake, could also have elements that felt very original, which this did when I read it. It didn't.
Right.
It really did when I read it. I was like, okay, I know what's going to happen. I know this happens with him and his wife, and then I know he goes on the run. I know who he is, but there was no, there was no mutants. There was no third act in Mars, which some fans of the original may miss, of course, but was great because it made the script very different. But also tonally, it just felt really, really different. So.
Now, we're used to seeing you in action films. Action, and we're very comfortable seeing you in action, but this was a level of action I don't think a lot of us seen you in. And there's, we see glimpses of it in the trailer, but that first fight between you and Kate Beckinsale, I'm sitting in a theater full of, bitter-hardened film critics watching this, and that fight had them, gasping out, wow, like on a number of occasions.
Oh, really? Wonderful.
Talk about the action
Cool.
and what it was like, and what made the action in this film different than the ones you've done before.
Amount. I mean, there's so much action in this film. Trying to think what I've done before. I mean, I've done stuff on horses before a lot, and some fist fights, but there's so many elements in this film. There's so many between the synthetic police force, all the hover cars, the expanse of architecture that goes up. I mean, there's so much depth to some of the shots, the elevator shafts, the action scene and that. I mean, the environment really compelled the characters in the story to move in a certain way, to leap when they had to leap in a very dramatic way, the whole thing, because of the environment, I think. And yeah, we trained really hard. I trained with a guy called Jeff Amada, who I'd worked with before, who's a wonderful martial artist and stunt coordinator, and I worked with a guy called Gabe Nunez, who stunt doubles for me, and Gabe does parkour,
Right.
urban street sport gymnastics, and so I worked with him a lot because I knew there was going to be a lot of running and jumping and stuff. And then it was just, for 6 months, man, it was chaos. It was mad.
When you have that much action, it can be easy to have a performance get lost in it.
Sure.
And yet there's that fine balance that there's a risk of overdoing it. And you found a great balance in there. What was that challenge for you in making sure that the character and the performance stayed center in the midst of all of this?
That every single action beat, every single step, every single run and jump and punch and duck and fall is inspired by a certain set of circumstances that the character finds himself in, which affect him psychologically and emotionally. So just that simple thing, and which was easy to lose sight of, because you do 4.5 months into the shoot, and you're on take 5 of a particular run and jump, and you're kind of going, okay, we're going, okay, cool, and then and Roth and action, and you run and do it, and then somehow a voice inside you goes, you completely just did that physically. You just careful, Colin. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
It's very easy to, if a scene is a dialogue scene, you never rest on your laurels.
Right.
You're always in trying to find something and play within it, But physical stuff, because you're trying to do it the same every time, by its very nature, it becomes dull and you can easily switch off. So that was the biggest thing I noted, was to go, okay, I have to remind myself, you just came from here, this has just happened, because the whole story takes place over what, 3 days? 2 days? 2 days, really. He's on the run for, 2 days, pretty much.
Well, listen, Colin, congratulations on the
Thanks,
film.
man.
I had a lot of fun with it. We can't wait to have it on
good,
AMC
I'm glad.
screens.
I'm
Thank you
glad.
very much,
Thanks,
man. So once again, don't forget, Total Recall opens in AMC theaters everywhere tonight at midnight, and you can get your tickets right now at amctheaters.com. We hope you join us. Hey, I wanted to mention this too. I was going to take a segment and talk about how AMC has, of course, our loyalty reward program called AMC Stubs, which is awesome, by the way. And there's a free screening for people who are AMC Stub members to see an advanced screening of the new film, The Odd Life of Timothy Green. Well, I'm not really going to talk about that much because before we even got to recording the show, all the free screenings sold out.
Oh.
But if you are an AMC Stubs member, there's going to be another free screening that we're going to be announcing in the coming days for the new Dax Shepard, Kristen Bell film Hit and Run. So keep your eyes open for that. Well, listen, it's we're going to go into over-under right now. But before we do, I want to remind you guys, we're coming up on the segment where we want you guys to program the show. We want you to hop in the chat board and ask any questions or bring up topics you'd like to hear us talk about during the last segment of the show. So hop on in there. Ryan is ready to take your questions. Start typing them in now, and we will get to those in just a second. But before we do that, we're going to play a little game of over-under. Here's how this game works. I'm going to ask our panelists, I'm going to give them a number, give them a situation, and they have to tell me if the real number is over or under the number that I gave them. So we are going to start with this. Our first question in over-under. In the last couple of days, the new Fast and Furious film, Fast 6, actually started production. New additions to this film is Gina Carano.
Yes!
Awesome. I love her.
Who is beyond awesome. And a guy who has, I love, even though he hasn't been in a great movie yet, Luke Evans. I love Luke Evans. Of course, played Zeus in 300.
Isn't he in The Hobbit as well?
He played Zeus in Immortals.
Sorry,
Around
Immortals,
about
not
that?
300. Thank you very much.
Same
Because there is
thing.
no Zeus in 300. So, Mike, here's the question. Over or under, the number is 40%. 40%. Chances that Fast and Furious 6 will be better than Fast 5. The number is 40%. Roth, let's start with you.
I would have said under had it not been Gina. Gina makes everything
She's
10%
awesome.
better than it could possibly be. So I'll go over.
Amy Rose?
Same. She's awesome. She had me at Haywire. Like,
Yeah.
she's just so believably cool and pretty, and I love her.
Drake?
Same. Like, I gotta say over 40%, specifically because the last movie I saw at like 8 a.m. on a Saturday morning, sitting next to like an old grandma, right? And we're watching the movie. By the end of the film, we're high-fiving each other. Total strangers, but now friends, best friends. And I think that it's because those movies have become comfortable with what they are, and they just keep giving us more of that. So it's like they're giving us more Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, love that, and now Gina Carano. So it's like, I'm all in on these movies. I will continue to be all in on them, and I will pretend that Tokyo Drift did not exist as my least favorite film of theirs. But they just totally over. That's an easy question for sure.
I absolutely hated the first 3 Fast and the Furious films because, first of all,
Why?
the first
Because
one,
you hate wonderful cars and speed and
well,
booty
the
shorts?
the first one was an absolute blatant ripoff of a superior film, Point Break. Plot point by plot point. It was a direct ripoff. Every single plot point in order.
Cars,
and I thought the
surfing.
next 2 were terrible. And then something funny happened. Fast and the Furious 4 came along, and I'm like, that wasn't half bad. That was actually pretty good. And then Fast 5? It was on a much smaller scale. It was an Avengers experience for me. It was just, like I said, much smaller scale, but just
words.
really fun. For that reason, I'm going to say that the answer to that question is under.
What?
Not because Gina Carano isn't awesome, not because it's not going to be a really good film, but Fast 5 was really good.
It
and to
was.
be
Fun.
top that, that's going to be tough. I think it's got a chance, but I'm going to put it under 40%.
You're
Let's go to this
crazy in the
next-
second one that Tyrese and Paul Walker were wrestling.
Don't talk to me.
Winner.
Let's next question here. Okay, so Jon Favreau, obviously responsible for, in many ways, responsible for the entire Marvel universe we got right now. Because if the first Iron Man film wasn't the huge, great success that it was, we would not have Avengers. I don't think Captain America would have got made. I don't think Thor would have got made. But of course, he is not directing Iron Man 3. But it's not like he's estranged from the Marvel family. He's returning in Iron Man 3 to play his character Hap. He sat on the Iron Man 3 panel at Comic-Con. He's just been announced that he's going to be directing the very popular stage show Jersey Boys into a feature film version. But the question is this. The number for us right now, again, is 40%. Chances that Jon Favreau will eventually direct another Marvel film. The number is 40%. Over or under? Grae, let's start with you.
I will say the chances that Jon Favreau will direct another Marvel picture are under 40% if he decides that he hates rolling around in big piles of money. If he decides that he loves it, then there's no reason that he wouldn't direct another one because he did a great job. So I feel like we can look forward to seeing him do more.
Amy Rose.
Yeah, I'll say over as well. He'll get Jersey Boys out of his system. Interesting choice there.
He'll get it out of his system like he's like a
He
teen
wants to
rebelling.
Yeah, he wants to flex,
He's
the
also going to
classic.
be doing that Magic Kingdom movie, don't forget,
Yeah,
based on
for
like
Disney.
Disneyland
Yeah,
or something like
for
that,
Disney.
right?
Which
So
could
he's
be
still
pretty
plugged
cool.
in with Marvel,
Yeah.
Disney,
Yeah.
all one
The
big happy
idealist
family.
in me wants over because he's awesome at it.
I think under. I think well under. I almost think 0% actually chance
Well.
that he will return to the Marvel universe. And the only reason is like they actually don't pay that much to their
Ooh.
directors. I mean that's one thing. That's sort of what they're noted for. That's why they keep getting people that are up and comers. They're very, very smart business people that way, and then they manage the franchises. I think he did an excellent job with Iron Man. I loved Iron Man. I don't. They had a big split with Iron Man 2, and I think that he will stay attached to the studio in many ways. I think it would be in many years from now if he did return to direct.
Yeah.
I'm going to go under as well, but I'm going to say barely under. I'm going to say 35%. Just the fact that it seems that he still does have a pretty tight relationship with Marvel. They're very active with Iron Man 3. Once again, sat on the panel with it, Comic-Con, doing another Disney film, still connected in there, returning to play his role in Iron Man 3. So I'm going to say under, but I'll say 35%. 35% chance he's going to be back. Let's move on to the last over-under question. Don't forget, guys, keep throwing. We're seeing a bunch of you throwing your questions into the chat board. Keep doing them because we're about to get to that segment of the show. The last over and under question. The new teasers for Paranormal Activity 4 have come out. And so it raises the question. We are now on the fourth one. The number is 50%. 50%. Over or under, chances that Paranormal Activity 4 will be the last film in the Paranormal Activity franchise. Over or under 50% that this will be the last Paranormal Activity film. Amirose, let's start with you.
It's gonna keep going as long as it makes money, and it costs nothing to make, so it's a no-brainer. It's gonna happen under.
Roth?
0% chance
Yeah.
that this is the last one.
Yeah.
They're gonna make 27
It's gonna be a
more.
Saw situation.
It's not like it's just, we're gonna be old and dead, and it's gonna
Yeah.
still they're gonna make it about our ghosts, basically. Like this franchise will never end. It takes 50 cents to make one of these films. I could make it in the next hour and then release it, and I would make $1 billion.
I really like that. It could be the ghost perspective haunting the humans.
Haunting the humans.
I like that a lot.
exactly.
Grae?
I want to be an optimist, and I want to say that it's under 50% because I think that pretty soon Paranormal Activity will be rebooted, starring Ashton Kutcher and Dan Aykroyd.
Cameo by Bill Murray.
Thank you very much. Good night.
I'm going to actually say the chances are over 50% that this will be the last one. Not by much. I'm going to say like 60% because I got to admit, I kind of like the last one.
It was great.
But it feels like they are getting to the end of how far they can stretch this premise. Because it's not
Yes.
like it's a different story every time. Like it's one continuous story
Yeah,
arc.
it's the
And I
same family.
feel like there's a chance here, maybe a better than 50% chance that they may wrap it up and maybe then move on to the next other low budget thing. But once again, I'm also saying 40% that it's not going to be over.
This
so
is neighbor POV film.
all right, folks, that'll do it for over under. We got a few minutes left here. We're now going to throw it over to you guys. You guys dictate for the next few minutes what it is we talk about. Go ahead, keep throwing your questions and your comments.
Bring
in the chat board. Oh,
you
but
got,
before we throw it open there, I just wanted to bring up one thing. Folks, when we're not on air, if you have any questions or topics that you'd like us to address in future episodes, or if you have any questions or comments regarding the show that we do, by all means, email us anytime at fycpodcastshow@gmail.com. I've got the email address up there on the screen. Email us, let us know topics you'd like us to discuss in the future. Also, give us some comments and some constructive criticism about this show, and you can email us at fycpodcastshow@gmail.com.
Why are we asking for criticism?
Keep it all positive.
Email us nice
So
things
now,
about
Ryan,
how awesome we are and that
Let's
we're
go over to
pretty.
you, Ryan. What have we got from the chat board?
Well, we got Ken Miley who's asking, what do you think about Nolan taking on Superman with the Man of Steel?
Wait,
Nolan
what?
taking on Superman and the Man of Steel.
I'm not
wait.
gonna lie, the teaser did not hook me.
Not in the slightest.
I expected much more.
I cannot disagree
Ain't
more.
up that. I thought that as a teaser, I thought they were genius.
Yeah,
Really?
I
Just
don't
that
know.
I did not
teaser.
like it.
I
It
can't.
was
You
a
guys.
nice little nice little quiet, subtle, homage, and it was
Yeah.
fun. But and then they split it between.
The Jor-El narratives and the
Jor-El,
Pa
yeah,
Kent narratives,
yeah.
juxtaposing the father figure who wants him to lead the world into its destiny versus the other father who just wants his son to be a good man.
Yeah.
I thought they were brilliant.
Which equals probably the world's greatest leader, right? I
Yes.
mean, those two motivations
Right.
of being like, fulfill your destiny, to fulfill your soul and be a good person and let that be your guide, makes you the world's
But
best
let's be
leader.
clear here. Let's be clear here because of the nature of the question. Just in case so nobody gets confused. Christopher Nolan of Batman fame is not directing
No. He
wrote-
this
he's
Superman
writing.
film. He's not directing Man of Steel. Zack Snyder of 300 is directing the film.
Which-
Christopher Nolan is on as a
Interesting.
producer. But that always raises a big point because a lot of times people come on these films as producers that do nothing.
Yeah.
They
Sure.
just lend their
Quentin Tarantino
name.
loves doing
Because
that.
well, listen, they want
Spielberg.
everybody. They want everybody that loves Dark Knight to be like, oh, same dude, Superman gets all dark.
Yeah.
That's what they.
Did you
That's why
like
they're
it?
doing
I
it.
mean-
The teaser trailer did not hook me emotionally.
neither.
I get logically what you guys are saying that's a good indication that the movie's going to be good, right? So I understand that and would never argue. However, emotionally, I felt no swell in my chest
Neither.
when he was flying through the air. I was like,
I thought
okay.
it kind of looked cheesy, to be honest.
Really?
You are
I-
dead inside.
No.
You are completely
Oh
dead
my God,
inside.
my mom says the same thing.
Us and the
I'm
cat
actually fascinated by this because I love you ladies and we've been so on the same page. Ryan was like, we saw the trailer the other day. That's Irish, our friend over here. And he's like, it's like Tree of Life Superman.
Well, you lost me a Tree of Life again, so you're just digging the
Okay, we got
Dude,
to
if
move on.
Superman has dinosaurs in it, sign me up.
We got to move on to the next question. Ryan, what else we got?
I'm going to skip over a few,
I
so I
will watch that
apologize to
movie.
anyone who's submitted these before this, but I have to jump into this. What do you guys think of the Cloud Atlas trailer?
Holy smokes.
Awful.
Let's talk about a trailer that
Awful.
excited Grae Drake and how wrong John is.
Oh my gosh,
Let's
awful,
talk about
awful
it.
trailer.
That
Are you
that
serious?
trailer, especially by the way, way to go Lana Wachowski for introing
know.
that.
Right.
Love it. It was exciting to see
And do
that.
you like her hair?
I love her
Love
hair.
her hair.
And totally biased.
This just went so girly.
I'm just stunned how I could hear criticism about Tree of Life over here, and then hear any affection for this Cloud Atlas trailer,
Cloud
which to
Atlas?
me feels like it's just trying so hard. Look how
I agree with
artur
you,
our
John.
movie is. Look how artistic our film is. I thought it was I think the movie will be great.
Yeah.
But I thought the trailer was
I agree
awful.
with you.
Just
It's
a
just trying to be
confounded
so
mess.
cool and relevant.
I
Yeah,
couldn't
total mess.
stop watching it. It was 5.5
But I liked her
minutes,
hair.
and 5.5 minutes, and I was so into it. I loved it. I thought that if anybody can tackle such a complicated book and such an interesting story, it would be them. And I don't know who that third guy is offhand, but boy, who cares? Because it's going to be awesome.
What did he direct?
Tim
It was-
Tykwer?
It was, I want to say Run Lola Run, but I feel like I'm being insane. Is it
was
Run
great.
Lola Run? that he
I don't know.
directed?
I don't know
Tweet
off
us.
the top of my head.
I,
yeah.
I believe,
Guys,
I
guys in the
believe
chat
it's-
board, throw up the
yeah,
answer
yeah,
there.
I believe it's Run Lola Run. I could be wrong, but I believe it's that. And so I thought that the combination would be really interesting of those three working together. And they sort of like, this was a dream project of theirs. I look, it was interesting enough to me that I now want to read the book.
Sure.
And
I
I hadn't
downloaded
read
it.
it yet.
Okay,
Yeah.
we got to keep moving here because we only got a couple of minutes left. Time for like 2 more questions. Ryan.
All right, so the next one. Feelings on Cumberbatch's character in Star Trek being a canon character, Khan, Gary Mitchell, other.
Oh, it's Gary Mitchell. They
It's-
totally
it's-
blew it, didn't they?
I don't think so. I don't because I think I remember once not Orsi, Kurtzman.
Yes.
I think Kurtzman it was not long before the alleged slip of Gary Mitchell that Kurtzman outright said it's not Gary Mitchell.
They're all liars.
Maybe I hope it's not Gary Mitchell. I don't see that as a viable character for this thing. I'm still
Yeah.
heartbroken that it's not Khan.
Yeah.
I think
Wow.
J.J. Abrams, what I think they should have done, they should have made it Khan. That's what they should have done. But I think J.J. Abrams will stick to what he's done before and keep it original. I think he will make. I think he'll have Cumberbatch be a completely new character. I could be wrong with that, and I'm cool with being wrong on that. But that's just what I think he's going to do.
In Cumberbatch, I trust.
Yeah.
Always. So I think that no matter who it is, like I'm always excited to see what he's doing because when he signed on, when he's now that we know what he's doing in Hobbit and stuff
Yeah.
like that, yay Cumberbatch.
But it should be mentioned. It should be mentioned though. I love Eric Bana as an actor. Love him
I
as an
do too.
actor.
But-
as great as Star Trek was, and I thought it should have been nominated in that 10th slot for
You're
Best
right.
Picture of the Year, the weakest part of that film was the villain. So I'm really curious to see how well J.J. Abrams handles
this
a
villain.
villain,
But
especially
I
with an
still
actor like
loved
Cumberbatch.
the movie.
Yeah,
I did
Yeah.
too. I thought it was fabulous.
This is why I think it'd be great if it was somebody like Gary Mitchell, is because I happen to be a huge fan of the best friends or brothers that then become nemesis. It's the classic comic book business. I just think that's
Xavier
a great
Magneto,
premise.
absolutely.
So, like, if that's what's happening in this film, rock on, bring it on. That is some deep, like, Joseph Campbell business. That will get in my psyche and rock out this summer film.
Did you like Pine as Kirk?
I did.
Yeah.
I did. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I
He was
liked
great.
everybody in that
Yeah.
film.
Me too.
It was so. And you know what the funny thing is, Pine was the only guy who was a total departure from his counterpart from the original. Because you had Spock was Spock.
Right.
Bones was Bones.
Bones was awesome.
But Kirk was a completely different Kirk, and it worked.
Yeah.
Yeah,
worked.
And
it
it
did.
worked so
was
well.
great.
Anyway, we got to get to the last question here, Ryan. What do we got?
All right. What do you guys? This is Julio Guzman, and what do you guys think of The Hobbit being made into a trilogy?
Oh dear. Oh Peter. Oh goodness.
How can you stretch it in 3? Like,
I just don't get it.
It's itty bitty book. It's an itty bitty
Yeah.
book. And the thing is that I think ultimately, because I believe that you guys spoke about on this a little bit recently.
Last episode, yeah.
Yeah, it's I share my view that Peter Jackson has free reign to do what he wants. I trust him. I know they're shooting a ton of stuff. They're actually not even done shooting. They stopped, and then they're going to start up again in 2013. They have a lot left to
Which
do.
is what he did with the Lord of the Rings films. I mean, even though they
Yeah.
were released successfully, he would take breaks for 3 or 4 months and then have
I
everybody
just
come
don't
back.
want another Return of the King thing to happen where I thought it was going to end 3 times because they're just
3,
dragging
try
it out.
15. Jiminy Christmas, it took forever. And I think too that we're going to have to sit through a lot of exposition versus an entire action piece
Just
versus
keep it tight.
a movie
I don't
that's
think they should
15
do it.
endings because he's so in love with this amazing thing that he's
World.
created.
And we
Yeah.
are too.
Yeah, we're in love
Of
with
course.
that world too. And you
It
wanna
all
spend
depends
time
on the
there.
quality of these appendices that he keeps talking about having. He has
Yeah.
hundreds and
Isn't it
hundreds of
only
pages.
100 pages?
Yeah.
But it could be more, and it all depends. I mean, if it's a page of something that you could turn into a 3-hour story, then
Sure.
fine. But I will say this: the one thing that gives me some hope for a third film, because generally speaking, it's such a small book, I'd rather have seen it just in 2 parts. But I will say this: Peter Jackson, with this Middle Earth world, he is accustomed to making 4-hour-long movies. If you go to Peter Jackson and say, "Hey, we need you to make an hour and 45-minute movie like average movies," he may not have a hard time making 3 quality, decently paced, decently edited Hobbit
right.
films.
All right.
I don't know that for certain.
Look at you, mathematician.
Yeah.
But hey, look,
There you go.
I just, with Peter Jackson,
I love him.
I've got a bit of a love-hate relationship with Peter Jackson when it comes to some other stuff.
He's your
with
frenemy.
Middle Earth, it couldn't be in better
Do you
hands.
guys give
Of
each
course.
other backhanded insults in the form of a compliment
Oh, yes.
to each other? I love him. Anybody that loves Peter Jackson and you haven't seen Heavenly Creatures, see Heavenly Creatures.
Oh,
This is
so
my
good.
And he
opportunity
does
to
this
say
world
that.
so
Yeah,
well.
and,
But
and we like being in this world, but it'll be interesting to see.
how stretched and
Now, here's the interesting
airy
question.
it feels.
I wonder if Guillermo del Toro was still there. Would they be talking about doing 3 movies?
No.
I feel
Oh,
like
I
if
don't think so.
Guillermo del Toro was there, that suddenly there would be like weird spider creatures
Oh, yeah.
that
Oh,
exist. Like,
This
I
is
just-
Middle
And
Earth.
they would be
But
badass.
Bilbo would have eyes on his hands.
and it was
it
just, I wanted to see
One of my
that.
faves.
And Katie Holmes would get pulled into Mordor.
Okay,
wanted
listen,
to see
folks,
that.
we have got to wrap this thing up. First of all, I want to thank our panels for joining us once again. Miss Grae Drake, Amirose Eisenbach, Roth Cornet. And thank you to you guys for joining us. Once again, if you're watching this pre-recorded on YouTube or on your Apple TV or on your Roku, wherever you're watching this, you can join us live Mondays and Thursdays at 11 a.m. Pacific Time, 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And you'll be able to find the links on our Facebook page. Follow AMC Theaters on Facebook at facebook.com/AMC Theaters. Make sure you're following us on Twitter at AMC Theaters. Find and subscribe to our YouTube channel where you can watch these videos all the time at AMC Theaters. That's youtube.com/AMC Theaters. And don't forget to join us again on Monday for this live stream and download and watch us anytime. Guys, in the chat board, thank you so much for your participation. Don't forget to email us any thoughts and comments you have about the show. We would love to hear your thoughts on that. My name is John Campia. Thanks for joining us, and until next time, bye-bye.